Welcome to my little garden. I thought I'd take you on a tour for all you fellow plant lovers and show you the difference between late spring and late summer. These pictures were taken in late spring, and you can see that I have a love for Hosta. I have quite a collection going. All things variegated, tiny, giant. They're all beautiful. They all have their own place in the garden. And while things look lush right now, at least they looked lush to me in late spring, once you see late summer, you'll see how much more full everything really gets. Those are million bells. Calibrachoa, great hanging basket. They don't require deadheading. Some of my plants I haven't quite put in the garden yet. They're a little small, but they're getting there. The blue flowers you see in the background there were Siberian iris. Now this area I played with a little bit this year, and I planted a castor bean back there. And you will see in a second what it looks like at the end of summer. Ta-da! So the castor bean's gotten considerably bigger, although not as big as the rest of the castor beans. And that corner has really filled out. And over here where all that ivy was, I pulled out all the ivy, got tired of it, because I needed more room. I needed to move my lilies, so I cleared out that section and planted new flowers there. And the reason I needed to move my lilies is because I have lilies out here mixed in with the iris, which also needed to be thinned this year because they're not blooming much. But these lilies out here I had to baby and take care of because of the red lily leaf beetle, another video. And I made them. They're perfect, they're wonderful, they survived just fine until the middle schoolers got out of school one day and came along and snapped off all my blossoms, and I was heartbroken. So all my lilies are moving back away from the sidewalk in a more protected area. This area is very green at the moment, except for some big bursts of color. And one of my favorites, the lupin. I just love lupin, and it's unparalleled for gorgeous color and structure. But this is Centranthus rubra, or red valerian, Jupiter's beard. It will bloom from spring until frost, and it honestly does. And that's Baptisia, another one of my favorites. So the Baptisia in this picture at the end of summer is obviously done blooming. I've tied it up a little bit because it does tend to flop and cover up the rest of the garden, so I call it my broccoli. And this is spring again. You can see there's a castor bean over here that is very small, but you'll see it later. It gets very big. The peonies are blooming. I just love peonies. They smell so beautiful. And this is allium after it's done blooming. These are the Siberian iris I talked about. They are beautiful. I love Siberian iris. Just a few things freshly planted, some begonias, some coleus. Fill in a little summer color once the spring color is gone. I like to try to make something blooming all the time, although there is a lot of green because green has its own beauty. It's very relaxing to the eye, as long as it's not just plain grass. That's a single peony. I think it's a very pretty one. It's a dappled willow that also gets very large over the course of the summer, and we call it the tentacles because it just reaches out and tickles on anyone trying to pass by. It's a great big zebra grass there that will get enormous by the end of summer as well, and you can leave it all fall for some nice winter interest. But in front of it there is some more Baptisia growing. That's a yellow one. This is my vegetable garden and my castor bean proving grounds. This year, after having seen my castor bean video last year, a gentleman called Ben Faircloth called me up, actually contacted me through Facebook and asked me if I would do a video for him about his castor beans. So he kindly sent me some castor beans, and I am growing several different varieties. And I planted them out here in my weed-free drip soaker hose vegetable garden, where they will get lots and lots of water and they will really take off. But like I said, this is late spring, so there's not a lot growing out here. Things are very small looking. Nothing compared to the forest that they will become. So there's my little castor beans. There's some kale. So in my vegetable garden, I grow tomatoes, zucchini, cucumbers, and kale. That's really about all I need. It's just me eating the vegetables, so not too much. There's some more peonies. And again, you can see that Baptisia looking nice and tall and architectural in the background there. This is another bed of some kale for fall color, as well as sedum and castor beans and a few annuals in there for some nice big color. To get that Jupiter's beard to keep blooming all summer, all you need to do is deadhead it. The bees love it too. In the backyard, I have more of that single peony growing here. A purple Baptisia. Some roses and a hibiscus. The hibiscus gets huge by the end of summer, but in the spring it's very, very small and a very late starter. So you have to be careful to remember where it is, otherwise you might inadvertently dig it up. That is the most fabulous hose reel on the face of the planet. It has made my life so much easier. It's from Front Gate. It's a self-retracting hose. I love it. These are some pots that at the end of spring look very small indeed, although I was pretty happy with them then, but now they're big and full and absolutely lush. Not much growing here. There's some very small elephant ear just starting to get a start. It was a great summer for rhododendrons. It was very wet around here this spring, and the rhododendron loved it. As well as the hydrangea later on, they had a spectacular year. And now we are in current time, and the castor beans that I planted after this video, the original one was taken, are nice and big. You can see those elephant ear over there are a little bit bigger. It's one of my favorite hostas. It's called June, and that's a honeysuckle. It smells wonderful when it blooms. Those are a lovely pale pink peony. They smell wonderful too. I have some purslane growing up in this little planter. The chicken wire is to keep the chipmunks from throwing everything all over the yard. And that's a ligularia, not your usual choice for a hanging basket, but I thought it was kind of fun. And I have a little pond over here with fish and frogs. Oh, there's a little frog right there. Oh, and a chicken. Pansies and lady's mantle. I love the lady's mantle. It's a beautiful plant. It really has a nice velvety leaf. That's a fiber optic plant. I think it looks kind of cool. I grow it every year in a nice tall bucket. Shows it off to its advantage. And that's little tiny coleus. Some more hosta. And this great big beauty is a climbing hydrangea vine. This is my biggest hosta called Great Expectations. It's a wonderful one, and we had a very wet summer, like I said, and some of the hostas really got attacked by slugs. That one does not have one speck of slug damage. This other one right here in front right now is called Ghost Spirit. It comes up white in the spring and then gets a little bit of green color on it towards the middle of summer. That one took a lot of slug damage. It's a much more delicate plant. Here's some I've gathered up for plant sales and donations and friend sharing. And my son made me this planter out of pallets one year as a gift because he knows I have a small garden, so he said I can grow up instead of out. So I moved it this year into the back because it was a little too shallow for the sun and it dried out really fast. So I moved it into the shade and I planted a few different things in it. And it did pretty well in the shade. I decided to give Impatiens another go. After the downy mildew problems with Impatiens, I was a little leery, but this year they did fine. Well, we've been watching the castor beans all summer, and they're having a race. It looks like the biggest one this season so far is the red. But this is the Portugal. This is red. This is Texas. This is purple. I'm really loving the color on the purple. It's got a nice dark burgundy-ish purpley color. This is blue number 2, and this is blue number 1. So blue number 1 and red have been battling it out, but it looks like red is a little bit in the lead. It is August 20th, and they have a good couple of months before they're actually done growing, so I expect at least another foot. This one is blue number 1 also, but this one does not get the supplemental water that the other one gets. So you can clearly see how much water makes a difference in the size of your castor beans. If you happen to see my video last year about the castor beans, the giganteum was the huge one that I had in the front yard. It was probably like 12 feet tall. Well, this was supposed to be the same, it came out of the same seed packet, but you can see sometimes there's a variation in the seeds. This one has a red stalk as opposed to an all green, and it has not gotten nearly as big as the other one did. Although granted, this one is not getting the supplemental water like the one did last year. But I think it's not going to necessarily get as big because it's not the same. So you never know what you're going to get with these castor beans. So the castor beans have really grown. The blue ones have this really lovely bluish cast to the stalks, and the flowers are, well, the seed pod flowers, whatever you want to call them, they're getting really big. I get more comments and questions about castor beans than just about anything else. These hostas look plain and ordinary, but they are one of the most fragrant hostas ever. My mother always called them August lilies. This little bowl of mess is actually grape jelly for the orioles, and they loved it in the bowl this year. I put it in a little moat to keep the ants off of it, and the orioles have just been coming all summer long. Those are Bath's pinks. They also smell wonderful. I love fragrance in my garden, so I often plant things especially for their fragrance. This is a lightly fragrant flower. It's called the yellowwood. It's a Cladrostis lutea, and it is a gorgeous big flowering tree. It is a lot bigger than we expected, so we're having a little trouble deciding what to do about the tree, the antennas, and the power lines, but it's worth it. Happy gardening!